get an idea of the demand, you can go on to Furnished Finder, fill out the list your property form. And even if you don't go to the very end and pay, and now keep in mind, our price to pay is very, very low. It's only $100. So, and that's for a year.
Yeah.
And for short-term rental managers, they're used to like, a 3-night rental, 2-night rental, you would pay more than $99 in fees. So we keep the bar very, very low in order to, and that's again why we have a lot of properties, about 250,000 properties on the site. But if you want to get an idea, you can go through that checkout process and just don't check out and maybe schedule a call or something like that. If we get your information, we'll send some emails out saying, hey, we got a lead in the area.
Hi, I'm Wyatt.
And I'm Grace.
And you're listening to our dad and your host of the Vacation Rental Revolution podcast.
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Odyssey Vacation Rental Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Sean Moore, and I'm really excited about our guest today. I feel like this conversation is way past due. I've been watching what these guys have been doing over at Furnished Finder. I've got Brian Payne, co-founder of Furnished Finder, and we're going to talk a lot about midterm rentals, traveling professionals, and being able to really something to consider as a short-term rental investor. Sometimes we kind of identify as one thing or another. And I think there's a lot of overlap, and I'm really, really excited to talk to Brian today. So Brian, thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Hey guys, how are you? Good to see you. And thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So Brian, before we hit record, I was telling you, most of my audience are owners, right? We're investors, we're buying properties, and building portfolios of short-term rentals, and midterm rentals are a hot topic right now. And I think, and really growing in popularity because of the, really growing in understanding, right? And so, but before we kind of dive into the nitty-gritty of midterm rentals and kind of your guys' view on it and how you got into it, let's rewind a little bit and tell me a little bit about what got you into this, what got you interested, how did Furnished Finder come about?
Wonderful. Let's say rewind back to 2012, 2010. I'm in the medical device industry, and I'm selling pacemakers and defibrillators to cardiologists and electrophysiologists in Bakersfield, California. So that's kind of where we got started in that area. As real estate investors, what I was looking to do is obviously supplement my income and get some extra freedom, right? And that's where we were definitely heading. And what we did is we started renting to midterm. We didn't sort of just fell into it. It was amazing. So when I met my wife, we were getting married. She put her property on Craigslist of all places, and it was furnished. So we just said, well, shoot, let's just buy us some time to go on our honeymoon. So we went on that honeymoon because a company called and said, hey, can we put a travel nurse in there? It was like, perfect, problem solved. So we did that, but then they renewed for another 3 months. They renewed for another 3 months. And it was one of those things where we go, whoa, wait, we need to understand this and figure out what the demand is here. So ultimately just looking to scale our rentals, and we did up to 12 units between California and Texas. And so that's kind of how we got started. It was an amazing journey to kind of figure out, well, at what point do you shift to a platform versus, just renting as your own for your own portfolio, and retirement. But that's how we got started. We realized that travel nurses are always on assignment. And this is, again, in 2014, right? So this is way before the pandemic.
Yeah.
And we loved this tenant type. They're traveling every 3 months. They're always gone, right? So they're working. So they're not sitting home, sucking up air conditioning, electricity, internet, all of that. They're out there working. And when they come back, they're, making a meal and crashing out, or maybe they're going to explore the area or whatnot on their breaks. But yeah, that was our wheelhouse. And then we just recognized the need for this on a national level. And I guess I'll pause and say that's where we got started.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I always I heard Rory Vaden talk about, you're most qualified to serve a person you once were, right? And you're this investor that's like, hey, we find this niche and we figure out, okay, I'm using Craigslist, right? And that's not the ideal platform probably for this because that has everything. Airbnb, Vrbo are kind of getting some, some foothold and kind of going off. But that's not really the ideal platform for that because it's kind of an in between, it's not a short term, it's not a long term. And so you're saying, okay, maybe there's something there, which I think was brilliant way before the pandemic, as much as the pandemic accelerated the progress and the popularity of short-term rentals. I'm assuming it did as well for midterm rentals and with traveling nurses. I know a number of them, and that's really kind of the niche and the market that you guys really started off and still probably your largest audience of consumers and users, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's a great question because that's where investors want to go next is like, hey, is it still primarily healthcare? And believe it or not, it has shifted. So it's gone past the 50% mark. Now, when I say that, it doesn't mean that travel nursing, the state of travel nursing or companies and hospitals aren't hiring travel nurses. Quite the opposite. I mean, it definitely regularized and hospitals are still hiring tons of travel nurses. But overall, our idea of travel and work has kind of molded together and merged, right? So there's a lot of, maybe remote workers, digital nomads, maybe just real estate buyers or sellers who are in between places. So we have a lot of that. So right now it's about 45, 55. And so we've got about 55% other, 45% healthcare. So yes, we love our healthcare community. Indeed. We love working with them. We still pour into the healthcare community. Absolutely. But we just know that there's lots of other traveler types out there that are using us. And it's just out of necessity. They're realizing when they come and search, we've got really good SEO. So when they come and find Furnished Finder, what they'll do is they'll look at the prices and go, well, wait a second, this is a really good opportunity in that I could find a furnished place and I'm not paying booking fees on top of it. I go directly to the landlord, the real estate investor, and we've got a ton of inventory. So it works really, really well for those non-healthcare travelers as well.
So in that, if I unpack that 45, 55, my guess is that it's not that even let's say it started off at 85, 15, right? It's not that the travel nurses necessarily have gone down. They're probably still growing, but as this has become more popular, that other category just continues to go. So demand is going up, right? And so you're seeing demand across the board. And I was just on right before we hit record on this. I was on with a guy actually in Denver, kind of in your guys' backyard, and he had to go to the corporate headquarters of a company and he's actually from Barcelona. So they have two headquarters. So he's coming over and they bring him over for 3 months, and he's here for 3 months, and he's like, I don't want to stay in a hotel for 3 months, right? That's and so as the consumer becomes aware that this is a possibility, not just even on corporate travel, but people building homes. I had one of my properties that we did a midterm rental because we were in a community that was growing. There was a lot of new construction. We had somebody move out during the slow season. The builder came to us and said, hey, I've got this family that just sold their home. I'm not going to be finished with their home for another 4 months. Can they rather than move twice, they would rather just move into a furnished rental. So things like that are continuing to grow as awareness grows, I'm guessing.
Yeah, indeed. If you can't get that rent back, as if you're selling or maybe you're remodeling and don't want to be breathing in all the dust for a few months, we're seeing a ton of other tenant types that are coming in just out of necessity. Again, finding us and going, wow, this works. I mean, we absolutely. I mean, Airbnb is a partner of ours. We're partnering with them, but it was always our model to support landlords that are interested in capturing direct bookings. So our platform is really kind of like we reverse engineered the booking, and we pump you full of tenants, right? So you're going to get notified when tenants are coming to your area. And then you have that control to reach out to them and go, that looks like a pretty good one. I'm going to reach out to them. Maybe have a conversation. You start a text chain, a message through the app, whatever. And as you start to go through, then we're going to provide all the tools that you need, right? Through KeyCheck. KeyCheck is a site that we started. And so it is landlord tool. So everything you need as a landlord, you don't have to be a Furnished Finder member to use KeyCheck. You can just go to keycheck.com and use the landlord tools. But if you're looking for, it kind of answered the question of what's next. Like, hey, I found a tenant on Furnished Finder. What do I do next?
Right.
Obviously, we're talking about midterm rentals. So instead of maybe just an online book where you're accepting anybody with a credit card, you probably want to know a little bit more information about who's going to be living in one of your rentals for the next 3 months. And sometimes they renew. So it very well could be a half a year or something like that. So you want to know a little bit about them. So we always recommend doing a tenant screening. You could do that at KeyCheck, and then once the tenant screening comes back, if you need a lease, you can get one, including e-sign and go that direction. Insurance, security deposit alternative, online rent payment, all those other types of products for landlords. So that's kind of our approach to support direct booking for landlords.
So it's not necessarily like, if we think about it and we're in the short-term rental world, it's not necessarily a booking platform like a Vrbo or an Airbnb. It's more of a connection platform where we can advertise our properties, but then you've got the users that can reach out as a lead, I guess. It comes through as a lead and you start the conversation. Is that correct? Yeah, that's exactly right. Now, say
you're dealing with a lot of seasonality sometimes, right?
Sure.
And we absolutely know and embrace Airbnb users, right? So we know that, hey, during your hot season, you're going to capture the most rent that you can. But many of our areas are seasonal. So in your shoulder seasons, maybe you just want a break, or maybe you just want, you just need a tenant, and you say, hey, I'd just rather have a long-term tenant during half of the year, something like that. It makes perfect sense, to put in a Furnished Finder traveler who's staying there for 3 months, less turnover, less wear and tear. You can go travel, have your team rely on your team for, those types of things. So it's a great break for the host. But if you're truly in a seasonal area, we work hand in hand, with short-term rental hosts.
Yeah. And I'm curious, because this last year on the short-term rental side, it feels like it's kind of the year of sweeping regulations, Really the last couple of years, we've just seen most areas are coming and saying whether they like them or they don't like them. And a lot of areas are saying we don't like short-term rentals and we've got a lot of restrictions. Yeah. There was a lot of short-term rental operators that are in those areas that can't do nightly rentals anymore, right? And this gives them an option, because a lot of times a midterm rental, it becomes more of a lease. And so just so you guys are aware that are listening, most, kind of the universal definition of a short-term rental is anything less than 30 days. Kind of midterm is more than 30 days, maybe 30, 60, 90, 6 months. And then long-term is going to be yearly leases, right? And so, but the short-term rules that have come out, and in a lot of areas that a lot of owners have, they just think, okay, I'm dead in the water, I can't do anything. There still might be options on the midterm side. And I'm wondering if you guys have seen a lot of people calling based on that.
Yeah, I mean, indeed. And I think regulation is here to stay.
For sure.
You'd probably agree. And I think it's maybe only penetrated about 5% of markets, even though it gets a lot of press, right? But in terms of all the cities and that, I think I saw a stat that it's less than 5%. So I think, unfortunately, there's some room to grow there. And I guess our message would be, hey, as a real estate investor, you don't have to tuck your tail and go back to traditional unfurnished 12-month leases, right?
Yeah.
There's another option. again, seasonal, yeah, we get that. But if you're squeezed out because of regulations, well, this is a perfect match. Your place is already furnished. There's really very, very little you need to do, if anything, to get your property ready for a midterm rental tenant. I mean,
Right.
they're just looking, to stay there for a long time. Just all of the things that you need that are probably already in there will transfer straight over. So there's very little that you need to do to, get a short-term rental ready to be a midterm rental.
How does income compare? Like, is it just kind of fair to say, okay, if you take long-term and short-term, it's somewhere in the middle? I mean, that would just kind of be probably way too elementary way to do that.
No, I mean, it's actually pretty close. It is somewhere in the middle. And we, of course, you realize you're going to be able to make, you're doing really well in short term. You maybe you're grandfathered in on that city. You've got a license. And again, during your busy season, you're going to do really well. I think with midterm, you're looking at 1 to maybe 1.5. So where Airbnb where short-term rentals maybe 2 or so, 2.5, depending on nightly rate and the area and pricing strategies and things like that. So midterm is definitely a little bit more stable, obviously less turnover. But in terms of opportunity, you're probably looking at a 1.5x.
Yeah, awesome. And so if I was an investor and I say, okay, I'm interested in this, but I don't really know how to go tell if it would actually be a viable option for me. I don't know. I don't understand demand. I don't understand, like, what would you suggest somebody do on the midterm side to go kind of figure out what demand would be like in the area that you're looking?
Yeah, no, we have a tool. It's on the stats page, Furnished Finder /stats, and it's also on the home page. You just scroll down a little bit. You go to the stats page, and you can type in your city, and you can get demand area. You have a good idea of inventory, and then you have a good idea of price. And I would also recommend just go to the Furnished Finder map. You can search by date, or you could just omit a date and just kind of see everything in your area. And it'll be sorted by availability first, but you can, maybe just leave a broad filter and get an idea, zoom in a little bit, figure out your particular area, and you can kind of just gauge some comps in your area and look for a property that's very close to yours, and what are they getting? What are they asking for? That's what I would recommend. Go to the stats page and then check out our map.
Are there any areas that you feel like are underserved, or that you see are growing, like the demand is growing faster than some of the supply? Like, obviously with medical professionals, around major medical centers, things like that are obvious. But as demand starts to go up in other areas, are there areas that you feel like there's room for investors to say, hey, listen, that's pretty underserved right now?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't pinpoint it immediately. I did a talk at the Midterm Rental Summit recently, and everybody wants to know the answer to that question. Sure. Hey, is my
audience would be mad if I didn't ask it. So
I get it. I absolutely get it. And but I do know that there's a lot of demand. Sorry for all the hosts in Albuquerque, but I know there's a lot of demand in Albuquerque with, that there's a big delta between maybe demand and inventory. But I will say that we are investing close to $500,000 to get our data in a way that we can really promote it and project it out as being the leader in the space, which we are. So we're going to be able to release, quarterly updates, maybe even monthly, to where we'll be able to focus in a little bit more specifically into different geographies. I think if the areas that you're interested in, you can absolutely go onto the stats page and onto the map and get an idea of inventory versus demand. If what you can also do is get an idea of the demand, you can go on to Furnished Finder, fill out the list your property form. And even if you don't go to the very end and pay, and now keep in mind, our price to pay is very, very low. It's only $100. So, and that's for a year.
Yeah.
And for short-term rental managers, they're used to like, a 3-night rental, 2-night rental, you would pay more than $99 in fees. So we keep the bar very, very low in order to, and that's again why we have a lot of properties, about 250,000 properties on the site. But if you want to get an idea, you can go through that checkout process and just don't check out and maybe schedule a call or something like that. If we get your information, we'll send some emails out saying, hey, we got a lead in the area. Of course, we're not going to tell you the person's name, privacy, and all of that. But we do give you an idea of when a tenant is coming to that area, like, hey, you would have just got a lead type of a thing.
Yeah.
But hey, the price point is $99 for a 12-month membership. So even if you're a short-term rental operator that just needs one tenant in your shoulder season, it makes sense all day long.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's a totally different pricing model than what most short-term rental operators are used to on those OTAs like Airbnb and Verbal. I mean, completely different, right? And so that's a great point to make for anybody that's thinking about it. It's you guys aren't, it's the host and also the guest who's coming in, they're not, nobody's getting feed to death, right? And, it doesn't double your booking by the time you check out with fees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's exactly that. I use the Airbnb all the time personally, maybe go up to Steamboat Spring, where I'm in Denver area. So maybe we go to Steamboat or Telluride or Breckenridge or Frisco, or maybe we're going to Arizona during the winter or wherever. I mean, we book Airbnb all the time. But, I will say is that if I can find the property manager direct, it's just, I'll usually do that.
Sure. Absolutely. And I'm really excited to see what you guys come up with on the data tools that you're working on. As an investor, I'm huge on data.
Me too.
It's
you guys are we're going to be blown away. Like we're using an amazing team, and they are a proven powerhouse and have worked with data, magnets in this industry. So partnering already with AirDNA, who are consuming some of this data, and it's only going to get better. So, we're investing in you. We absolutely hear that, hey, we need more data in order to make a buying decision
for sure
in my geographic area. And we understand that. So
I love it. If I could say there's one thing that's held me back of just actually buying specifically for midterm rentals, it's that I've done midterm rentals, like I've mentioned, as kind of a plan B, shoulder season, something that comes up, but I underwrote it as a short-term rental, knowing what the main plan is. But I've always, for the last couple of years, I've been really, really interested in the midterm, and trying to kind of figure out the numbers has been a little bit difficult, frankly, because there's not an easy place to go get the data on midterm rentals.
Yep. And we understand that, and we are absolutely investing in that. We're going to get that to you. But in the meantime, if you do have a property that you think midterm rentals would be good for, minimal investment, you get, and you're going to get pumped with tons of tenant leads in your area. And, we're going to provide you those tenants. You're going to make them your tenant, and we're going to provide you the tools. So you can probably get your own real-time data just by
doing it. Yeah.
Just by doing it. But we understand, hey, if you don't want to put up the $100 investment, go to the stats page, go to the map, and you can go through the sign-up process and start getting contact emails from us to get an idea of the volume.
One other question I've had, and I've talked to a couple corporate housing kind of experts in the corporate housing game, and they said that smaller properties are really where the demand is. Like 1, 2, 3. Once you start getting above that, it really starts to fall off. Do you see the same thing with the properties on Furnished Finder?
Yep, this was also in my slide deck for the MTR Summit. And what we're seeing is, and it works perfectly. So as we start to see, like you said, 85 healthcare 15. And as we start to see those tenant types regularize, we're also seeing the scale of starting at studio all the way up to like a 4-bedroom. We're starting to see those 3 and 4 bedrooms start creeping up as well, because the demand that in these other traveler types, you're going to get more traveling professionals. Maybe it's a right. CEO, maybe it's a doctor. Again, relocation. We haven't talked about insurance, but maybe a displaced family, corporate housing. These are typical tenant types that can afford and are looking for a 4-bedroom plus, because they're coming with family and need all the things for their comparable living standards when in the short term until they get settled or moved or whatever.
Right. That'll be interesting to really watch. That's really interesting to hear. And it makes sense that as the other, kind of that other demographic starts to kind of normalize and come up and continues to grow, then also the property types need to be a little bit more varied, right? Bigger properties work for some, smaller properties work for others, where traveling medical professionals, a lot of times it's just a single person going out and doing it, right? And they don't need a 3-bedroom. And so that's probably what kept that where it was for a long time. But insurance is a huge one. There's a lot of people displaced in a lot of areas, and it's not always some major natural disaster. I mean, floods and fires and things happen all the time where people get displaced for a few months as their houses get put back together.
Right. Yeah. What I'm seeing and again, learning from all the landlords at the Midterm Rental Summit, a lot of them are really going after the leads that come through Furnished Finder to have access to all of them, instead of just like, hey, they came to your listing. Well, we also do housing requests. So we tell you, hey, these people are coming to your area. Yeah. We even give you the unmatched leads as well. Like, hey, this person's coming to your area, but it doesn't really match. And here's why it doesn't match. So you can get all the data of what's coming to your area, who and why, how long. And then you can kind of gauge your offering and say, okay, I could see, maybe I'll open it up to pets. Maybe that's the security deposit alternative program that we have, or that it's launching shortly, will allow you to be whole if there's pets, and you're now encouraged to open it up, and you're going to get 40. You're opening it up to another like 30 to 40% population, tenant population, just by doing that.
So and I know that you guys partner on, I've seen on the website, you partner with a lot of different corporations and a lot of different organizations, probably their HR departments, things like that, reaching out and looking for, for some relocations, for people that are placed on temporary assignments, all those different things. Do the leads typically come from the individual or from some of more the corporations, or is it a good mix?
Yeah, fantastic question. It can be absolutely both. So there's a lot of travel managers, right? So travel managers can be with a corporate housing company, or they could be with a corporation themselves, or the entity themselves. So what a lot of our midterm rental hosts do, is they will look to gain contracts from these leads. So they're going to look and go, oh, wow, this person works for X company, Y company, or, maybe the Department of the Defense or whatever. Yeah. And you can connect with a travel manager who can literally bring 6 figures if you can scale, or if you have that many properties to provide. So, midterm rental hosts, they're aggressively using the leads, using the data they get through Furnished Finder to gain contract. And then they are the preferred housing provider in that area. Yeah. And so if you get on the short list with some of these travel managers, it can really make a difference.
That's huge. What a great opportunity as an investor, really to take advantage of that and grow your business, right? You're talking about not having to go out and hustle all the time. You go out and you develop relationships with those
you develop those relationships. Yeah. It's so key. Yeah. It's not just taking bookings, right?
Yeah.
I heard Mark Simpson from Boostly, and he said, hey, if you're only listed on one short-term rental platform, then that's your job.
Right.
You're an employee of that platform. Yep. Where here, we're empowering you to make those relationships and to build your business.
Yeah. And I want to just underline that for anybody that has not been in the business very long is typically when you go on a site and they have a customer base who is looking for business, they don't want you building a relationship with their customer base. And so that's really critical as an investor. It's a huge advantage as an investor to be able to work with like a Furnished Finder, where you encourage the customers like us, the host, to go build those relationships with really your customers on your platform as well, right? And that's discouraged in most scenarios.
Right. What we've learned is that so one listing, right? Once that listing is full, that listing could be off the market for 3 months.
Yeah.
So, or most likely 3-4 months. So we need a lot of inventory. So before it was like, no, we're just going to hold and capture what we can, and we don't want to encourage that behavior. But no, we need so much, and that's why we keep the price low, because the demand is out there for midterm rentals. The demand is out there. It's just a matter of, are you going to be that person that captures that business? I mean, you can capture bookings all day long, but are you going to capture that business?
Right. Awesome. No, I love it. And this is, you and I could talk for quite a while. I would love to have a part 2 of this once you guys get the data tools together. And but
oh yeah, I would love that.
Yeah, that'd be really fun to dive into that. I'm always a kind of a numbers guy, always have been. And so that stuff's really fun for me to dive into. But I really, like I said in the very beginning of this, I felt like this conversation was way overdue. I do feel like this is a misunderstood opportunity for a lot of people that have been in kind of chasing that short-term rental game for a while.
Yeah.
That it's a good, doesn't mean you have to just about face and only do midterm rentals.
No, you don't.
Yeah. Really figure out what you want the portfolio to look like, what the area that you're investing in, who that target audience really is. And midterm rentals, everybody that I've talked to that's really diving in and really understanding them and getting good at them, they're having really great success. And so, and you guys at Furnished Finder have done an amazing job of really being the pioneer of having a platform for us as investors and also the guests to be able to go find, these homes that they can use for those midterm, those 30, 60, 90-day stays or beyond. And so, it's been really exciting for me to watch you guys grow kind of from the sidelines. You've seen the websites change and what's going on and how many properties are on there. I remember talking about midterm rentals on my podcast. I was actually talking to one of my members about Furnished Finder about 3 years ago, and it looked totally different. It was totally different. Everything was different, right?
We are evolving. We are absolutely evolving, and we've experienced tons of growth. Let's just say 1,200% over the last 4 years across the board, and it's really been wild.
That's fun. Really, well, congratulations on that too. Yeah.
It just speaks to the demand. It speaks to the industry. It speaks to your listeners, the investors who are hungry for a new real estate strategy. Right. So that's the industry, that's the market, that's the opportunity. I believe my slides from that might be posted on the Midterm Rental Summit website. I got to double check that. Awesome. But we are hosting another one. I want to say January. I don't think the date's been set, but right now, definitely look into that MTR Summit or Midterm Rental Summit with Jesse Vasquez. And other than that, it's been fantastic. I really appreciate the opportunity to, brag a little bit and tell you about the company that we're so proud of. But ultimately, just the opportunity out there for real estate investors and landlords.
Awesome. I appreciate you coming as well, Brian. And those of you listening, we always appreciate your time. Go check out the MTR Summit, Midterm Rental Summit. And if you can go find Brian's previous talk. When was that? Did it just wrap up, Brian?
Yeah. That was end of April.
Okay, right. So we're recording this going into the second week of March. So we just wrapped up. So look for that next one, hopefully in January. Do you know where they're at? Do they always move around, or are they always in one spot?
We were in San Diego, but they're I think they're talking, maybe I heard like San Jose, something. That area that's a really cool area. But we're not sure yet. I think they're still digging into it.
We'll keep our eyes on that. And then in the meantime as well, go check out Furnished Finder. Those of you that are interested in it, lots of great tools on the website. If you go to furnishedfinder.com, especially scroll down. And I did look at it while we were chatting, and you said you can kind of go find that the demand, the housing demand.
Yeah.
That's fun to go see, be able to download that. I'm going to play with that as soon as we get off. So those of you that are listening, go check it out, sign up. If you've got a property that you feel like would be a good fit, it's crazy not to invest $100 to go see if you start getting leads, and then being able to curate, build those relationships, and hopefully have another investing strategy moving forward for you. So as always, Brian, thank you so much. We know your time's valuable. We appreciate you sharing it with us and our audience.
Indeed. I appreciate you having me. Thank you, Sean.
All right, absolutely. Okay, guys, we'll wrap it up today, and take one thing. I always leave you with one challenge at the end of every episode, and that is to pick one thing that you can do today to go start building that life you don't want to take a vacation from. Cheers, my friends.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Vacation Rental Revolution podcast. Share this with other people you think need to hear about it. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. Hey Grace, is there a website? Yes! For more amazing content and expert advice, visit Vodacy.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.